Chapter 133. The director of the orphanage where I grew up was, no matter how you worded it, a distant man. The children of the orphanage complained about it. He's too careless. All of our birthdays are on January 1st, you know? It's because he doesn't want to deal with having more than one birthday party. Also, my name is so shoddy. Kim Mangja, 1. Hey, at least you guys' names sound natural with our last name. I'm Kim Hanbija. He should have just named me Hanbija, too. I thought the same way. I thought so even after I entered the tower. But I met a lot of people, the Sword Emperor, Master, Raviel, and many more, and I have second thoughts. Director, why are you like this? It was weird, but the man always seemed to be overly on guard against saying that he loved us. Director, don't you love us? The conversation I had with the director on the day I received my second-hand middle school uniform came to mind. The director made a solemn face at my question and said he would tell me tomorrow. He always delayed his responses to serious questions, telling us to wait a day. Then, he replied. You asked me yesterday why I don't treasure you kids a little more. Yes. As the day went on, I felt a little sorry for asking such a question. But, the director didn't care for my apologetic feelings and told me the answer he had prepared the day before. Gongja. It's easy for people to pretend. Pretending is the easiest thing in the world. You can pretend to be smart, to be strong, to be friendly, or to know something well. You too put on an act with your friends, don't you? It's the same for me, who named you children after sages. All adults pretend. The director rubbed his face with his hands. Everyone wears masks. You don't need to get rid of the mask, but if you get too used to it, at some point, you forget that you're wearing the mask. It slips your mind. You become drunk on the pretense. The director stared at my face solemnly. He was gauging my reaction, seeing if I was following along. Imagine this. If I get irritated in front of you children, what would you think? You were stressed today. Yes. That's right. The director wore a bitter smile. I'm sorry. I do get angry sometimes. He got irritated about once a month. Anyway, what's important is that I get annoyed by you kids sometimes, and you know that fact well. Right? I am such a person. You know me. The director continued. However, what if I were someone who always loved you? What if I always told you that I love you, smile and say that you are the purpose of my life, and hug you and say that I treasure you kids more than anything? What if I were that sort of person, but I still got annoyed at you once a year or so? The director shook his head. Then, you will think, why is the director angry with us? You wouldn't be able to understand because you believe that I'm someone who loves you the most. If the director loves us the most, why does he get angry? You guys are still young. So in the end, you'll arrive at the simplest answer. I must have done something wrong. The director shuddered a little. Gongja, even if I only yell at you once a year, in 10 years, it would be 10 times. Say that you only remember half of that, so 5. The memories from these 5 times are more than enough to affect a person's character. Then, the director was silent for a while. Don't. The director muttered. Remember me as someone who is irritable and gets stressed easily. Think of me as someone who can't be bothered to throw you all birthday parties. That's the truth. Don't blame yourselves. You haven't done anything wrong. Don't get twisted because of a guy like me. You kids can grow up strong. Be as strong as you can. In the director's office, there was a printed sheet of paper on the wall. It was right across from the director's desk, so it melded with the background. It was something that was always there, like wallpaper or floor patterns. But that day, I looked at the paper. Plus. For all people to live as humans. Based on a belief in human dignity and social justice. Join with individuals, families, groups, organizations, communities, and all of society. I will always stand on the side of the marginalized and the suffering. Defending their human rights and interests. Rejecting injustice and corruption in society. Putting public interests before personal ones. By following the social worker's code of ethics. I commit to being a social worker with morality and accountability. With my free will, I solemnly swear on my honor. Plus. 3. I looked at the director. The director looked stonily into the air like he was lost in thought. Black eyes. His eyes were burned into my memory. I'm sorry, Raviel. I can't go home with you today, I said, standing at the school gate. Raviel looked at me. Her gaze slowly dropped to my hand. There was another hand there as well. It was the hand of Constellation Killer. I had grabbed the Constellation Killer's hand and dragged him all the way here. He didn't ask why I was holding his hand or where we were going. He just meekly kept his head down. My boyfriend sometimes acts in bizarre ways. The way you act is almost a mystery. I think that side of you is amazing, Raviel murmured. Do as you wish. Follow your heart. Is there anything I can help you with? Not now, but if I need help, I'll tell you right away. I believe in you. Always. Raviel kissed me on my forehead. Then, without hesitation, she turned around and entered her limo. The limousine was driven by a butler who resembled the Grand Chamberlain, and they soon disappeared down the road. Now. I looked back at the Constellation Killer. Let's go. Where to? To your house. The Constellation Killer hesitated for the first time. He seemed to shudder, but I was adamant. First, I would visit the Constellation Killer's parents and apologize. Though, I don't know where to start untangling this knot. Of course, the apology wouldn't end the trauma. It couldn't be resolved so easily. As the difficulty increased, it seemed that the trauma became a stage I needed to clear. For now, I'll do what I can, one step at a time. Like I always did. However, my attempts to resolve the trauma were thwarted from the start. It's here. I was speechless when I saw the house the Constellation Killer led me to. It was a garbage dump. At the foot of a mountain, there was an empty lot where the pine trees were scarce. This clearing acted as a small dump for the city. Plastic bottles, dirty styrofoam, and crumpled paper that the city's people discarded were piled up messily. In the middle, there was a shack. Lives in a dump. The indoor shoes and the school uniforms are all recyclable. The only trash that can't be recycled is. My head throbbed. I thought the text was just being spiteful. Bastards. How about your parents? Are they working? The shack was not a haven but a shelter. The wall did not reach up the roof, so there was a gap. The roof was covered with gray vinyl. My father collects and sells junk. Plastic trash surrounded the shack like a moat. The labels on the plastic surrounding the shack were torn off, unlike the other trash around. They were clean. Perhaps that was why the shack looked like it was floating on a sandy beach made of white plastic. How about your mother? I don't have one. All right. Our U.S. friend? We waited for 2 hours before the Constellation Killer's father returned home. He was a poor man. But he was a man who had been crushed more by life than by poverty. I could see it as soon as I saw him. A small room. Sometimes when I looked in the mirror, I was like that. No. I'm not his friend. The old man furrowed his eyebrows. He looked too old to have a child in high school. His face resembled the face of the old boatman whose trauma I saw in The Chronicles of the Heavenly Demon. I am the one who hit and bullied this boy. The old man blankly blinked his eyes. I realized it 1 minute after I started talking to the old man. I'm late. It was already too late. The old man in front of him was already worn out. His heart was running on fumes. He was different from me when I lived in the small room. That was the difference between me from back then and this man. I didn't know where this difference came from. Here is the evidence. If you look at the cell phone, there are text messages. See this. There was only one thing I was certain of. This man didn't have the power to take responsibility for the Constellation Killer. I showed him everything I could show him right away. After seeing the hell that his child had been enduring, the old man continued to blink his eyes indifferently. I see. All he did was look at me. When I finished talking, the old man stopped his dull replies and assents. It felt like the conversation had ended. The old man just waited to see if I had anything else to say, but he did not seem to want me to say anything either. He had nothing to say to me. I looked at how the Constellation Killer was doing. The Constellation Killer was not looking at his father. His face did not seem shocked or offended by the conversation just now. A blank expression. The Constellation Killer sat quietly on the floor. Like he was just letting things play out naturally. That's right. It was like this. I've done many bad things. I stood up and bowed deeply to the old man. If you are all right with it, I would like to stay with your child for a while. I want to invite him to my house. Is that acceptable? Go ahead. It was obvious that the old man did not understand what I was saying. He was powerless. But I explained it many times over, not for the old man's but for the Constellation Killer's sake. He may be staying at my house for a bit longer. A week, maybe a month. It might be even longer than that. Every weekend, on Saturday evening, I'll visit you and tell you how your child is doing. Sir, is that all right? Fine. It's all right. Good. I turned and faced the Constellation Killer. Let's go. Pack what you need. As I told your father, you'll be staying at my house for a while. The Constellation Killer looked up at me in bewilderment. What are you up to now? The Constellation Killer wasn't speaking politely anymore. Are you trying to tidy up your past since you're going to marry a rich girl? Are you worried it'll cause problems later? That's smart. My heart thumped. Or is this a new game you cooked up? If you want to play, just tell me what you want. Tell me what kind of game this is. Don't beat around the bush. I'll play along like always. Do you want me to go to the schoolyard at night? The Constellation Killer's voice was cold. There was no inflection. It was the voice of a person who had decided to die the next day. I'm sorry. Are you insane? You are. Kim Gongja. Please just give me a day. I beg you. I'll do whatever I can. Please endure it for one more day. It was just one of the many days I had left to live, but for the person in front of me, it was his final day. I had no choice but to hope. I had to ask for it. There was nothing I could do other than hope and ask. Do it yourself. Whatever you want. The Constellation Killer muttered like he was exhausted. I grabbed the Constellation Killer's wrist and headed home. Since I didn't know the way from here, we had to return to school and head over from there. We arrived at the residential area only after the sun had set and the sky turned dark. Please wait here for a moment. I'll come back soon. Within 20 minutes. Will you wait for me? I told you, do what you want. I left the Constellation Killer on the street and entered my house first. Oh. Bei Hurayong was out in the yard. He held a glass of whiskey in his hand like he was observing the night sky by himself. Welcome back, son. You're a little late today. Keh. You weren't off playing because you have a girlfriend now, were you? I'm telling you, you should start dating seriously after you graduate from high school. It's no good to step on the pedal and rush a relationship. The Sword Emperor. My partner. The person who taught me how to face forward. In this world, my father.
Yeah.
Bei Hurayong blinked. It's sort of weird. Why is that? It feels a little weird that you're calling me your father. Or rather than being a little weird, it's really awkward. Like I'm getting goosebumps. How scary. Is it because I'm drunk? Father. I called him one more time. You couldn't have raised me like this. What? The father I know is a great man. A scary man. He may seem like a psychopath who only cares about himself, and to an extent, he is, but he would definitely take care of something if he thinks it is wrong. Bei Hurayong creased his brows. What are you talking about, son? If you are my father, I would never grow up to be a bully. I may go down the wrong path, but you would beat me up before I went too far. You'd bring me back to the right path even if you have to kill me halfway to do it. That was the type of person he was. Even more, when I was tormenting a weak child. Even driving him to suicide. That. Ignore the people who are making a fuss about it. They read just keyboard warriors who would never make a peep if in person. Humph. Those guys should just have their fingers cut off. That is something you'd never say. You're simply not a person who can say that. You're someone who sees someone in distress and swears that you will teach them how to be happy. I'm the kind of person you despise the most. You can't kindly call someone like me, son. It's impossible. This world is an impossible world. Silence fell upon the night sky. In the yard where no sounds of bugs could be heard, I looked straight at Bei Hurayong. I continued. You are not the Sword Emperor. Get lost. Get out of my sight right now. That moment. Bei Hurayong's body crumbled away. The skin dripped away. Bones melted. The clothing material evaporated. When I closed my eyes and opened them again, there was something of which I could not see the shape. There was just a sinuous shadow, like a ghost. I couldn't understand what it was saying. I couldn't even recognize its face. However, I knew that it was the naked face of my father. It was the naked face of this world. I passed by Bei Hurayong and entered the house. Welcome back, Gongja. Master was sitting on the living room sofa. A face and form that I thought I would never see again. How was school, my son? Master was smiling gently. 1. Mangja is the Korean name of Mencius, another Chinese philosopher. 2. Hanbiza is Hanfizi. 3. The Korean social worker's oath. I couldn't find an official translation for it, so here's my take. Chapter 134. Moss. I could not finish saying both syllables of the word master. My heart was pounding. There was a mixture of many emotions churning inside me at the moment. My heart had become a rag, and if I twisted it, all of my dark feelings would seep out. Master. My strange destiny. The peony who had become my teacher. Mother. Master looked at me. Her eyes, always orderly, were shaking. It was the first time I had called Master my mother, and it was Master's first time being called mother by me. How strange. Master put down her pencil stub. Had she been working on her manuscript? Papers with Master's handwriting lined the living room table. I don't know how long it's been since you called me that. Sentences that could not be written. Words that couldn't become sentences. Sheets that could not become books, read manuscripts were scattered about. I feel like it's been a very long while since you called me mother. No. Rather than being a long time. It's like, I love you, mother. The tips of Master's fingers paused. I wanted to see you again. Did you know? I now have someone I'll love forever. It's actually possible to love someone truly and be completely loved by someone. Holding Raviol's hand. I wanted to introduce her to you first, mother, more than anyone else. If it's you, mother, you would definitely become good friends with Raviol. As for me, I'm surviving well. I'm living well. I am trying to live well. There are many days when I recall your words, mother. Master. I wanted to see you one more time. Master slowly rose. She came to me. Master's long, thin fingers wiped my eyes. Did you have a nightmare? I'm currently having a nightmare. Life is no different from a dream. But that doesn't change anything. Is evil not evil if we say it is uncaring? Are wounds healed when we make excuses, citing ignorance? My son. Don't be fooled by words. You should always look inside your heart. Don't let your heart be governed by hollow words and flimsy sentences. Master hugged my shoulder. Whether or not you call me mother, I remain myself in your heart. As do you. A person isn't a person because they know how to memorize a few words or say a few lines. A person becomes a person by the weight of another whom they put in their heart. I shrank into Master's arms. My mouth opened and closed several times. Mother couldn't have raised a child like.
Yo.
Suha. Yes. Someone who throws punches out of anger. You wouldn't call such a person to the dinner table. You would have kicked them out of the house. But before you kick them out, you would have taught them better. Before teaching them better, you would have already raised the child to be kind. So I would. That's why. I opened my mouth. Mother isn't so Baek-hyang. Master smiled. Stay alive, Gongja. You have to live strongly. With a smile, she faded away. Master's face dripped down. Her smile melted. The hand that held my shoulder was erased. It disappeared, leaving only a shadow. The shadow had no face. Its outline was blurry. Squirming, the shadow left the room like a giant earthworm. Another layer of this world was peeled away. That over there was the bare face of my mother.
Ugh.
I ran to the bathroom. I leaned over the toilet and lowered my head. Loss. Guilt. I threw up these dark feelings. My heart vomited. Huh? Behind my back. I heard a voice from the bathroom door. Hey, did you eat something weird? Why are you vomiting as soon as you get home? Brat, did you eat something crappy outside? Didn't your older brother tell you to watch what you eat, if nothing else? It was.
Yo.
Suha. Do you want me to pat your back a bit?
Yo.
Suha. Dude. Did you throw up your brain along with whatever you ate? little brother. Where's your respect? I sat on the tile of the bathroom floor and looked up at
Yo.
Suha.
Yo.
Suha was standing on wriggling squid legs. You.
Shh.
Asterisk TTY. You didn't vomit your brain, you dumped it out. Hey, sometimes in life, you hit people, all right? Your big bro was also scared when the news broke yesterday. Mom and Dad scolded me damn well. But we're a family, so you should root for me.
Yeah.
Don't you think so? You crazy bastard. I muttered while holding on to the toilet bowl. You're, fuck, a really.
Shh.
Asterisk TTY person. Huh? If all you did was hit a stalker, you'd be an angel. You're the type of bastard who'll hit the stalker behind their head and bury the body behind a mountain and set off a wildfire. What? Only a psycho would do that. Is that how you see your older brother? You're that very psychopath. Motherfucker. My head became dizzy. An idol? A singer? You think you can have that sort of career? You know nothing about fan service. You curse at every interviewer and cuss out their parents for dessert. But you think you can be a singer? Don't make me laugh. Besides, you get scolded by your mother and father? Are you the type of person who'll learn anything from being scolded? It's a relief you don't slap your own parents. Fuck. Damn you.
Yo.
Suha, you'll never be the type of person who comforts his vomiting younger sibling. You just can't. I wish you could have been that kind of guy. I stared at
Yo.
Suha's face. I didn't kill you. I didn't kill you, asshole. I didn't. Because you can't be. So I can't. For me to kill you, I tried not to kill him. Really, you've done some fucking.
Shh.
Asterisk T, you. Sometimes, I dreamed. Oh, over here, Hunter Nim. Please, save me. I shouted. Huh.
Yo.
Suha looked back at me. I was ambushed by wolves.
Shh.
Asterisk T. What the fuck? Mister, did you provoke the monsters here already? Damn. Then today's hunt is fucked.
Yo.
Suha clicked his tongue. Pee potion. I begged him, but he. Be careful next time. Fuck. It looks like I won't even be able to make a day's wages.
Yo.
Suha gave me the potion. Sometimes, I dreamed. I'll give you a potion, but you have to pay the right price for your life.
Yo.
Suha said. F40 gold. I replied. Enough. Hand over everything you have right now. Saying that,
Yo.
Suha took everything I had, and. Good. Be more careful next time, Mr.
Yo.
Suha gave me the potion. I dreamed that the
Yo.
Suha of 11 years ago was still a greedy bastard, but he didn't kill someone who was injured and weak. I sometimes dreamed that I didn't have to kill my hero with my own hands, and you.
Shh.
Asterisk TTY bastard.
Yo.
Suha's black hair fluttered. Fuck off. Your place is within my shadows. If you're trying to set up a new home in this hell with a new personality, cut it out. Then, the black hair fell away. My brother became a ghost and made a gloomy sound. That's right. It was a specter. They were souls that could not even become ghosts in this trauma, where they had lost their existence. Those who had lost the forms extracted from my memories were now mere shadows. I washed my face in the sink. Water dripped from my eyebrows. Okay. My mutter settled lowly in the house of specters. It's all right. You can do this, Kim Gongja. You can do this. This was not my home. This was not my world. It was just that a life I wanted to reap was trapped in this hell. I exited the house and came back with the constellation killer. The constellation killer did not recognize the specters as such. In his eyes, the specters seemed to be my father, mother, and brother. No. Perhaps it was the other way around. From the beginning, my father, mother, and brother may have looked like specters to the constellation killer. For him, the humans of this world may have been no different from specters. So, all of the sounds the humans made would have been nothing more than noise to the constellation killer. Good eve. Don't greet them. I cut him off. You don't have to be polite. I grabbed the constellation killer's wrist and went into my room. The constellation killer was dragged away by me, unable to finish his greeting. My brother, who had been wearing Suha's face a short while ago, followed us. He tried to follow us into the room. However, I pushed him away and blocked the door. Don't come in. I'm warning you. I'm going to take care of this child for a while. I'll do everything on my own, so you don't have to interfere. Don't come in or talk to this child if he doesn't allow you to. I'm serious. I closed the door and locked it. The specters mumbled outside the door. I ignored them and made a place for the constellation killer to sleep. The constellation killer, still holding the bag on his back that he left school with, stared at me. Can you say that to your family? It depends on the family. For you, this is your bully's family. Don't speak politely. It feels wrong. Really, I don't know what sort of big thing you're planning to put so much effort into this now. It doesn't matter if you think I'm plotting something. For now, sleep. Where will you sleep? Anywhere. Get some rest. You'll feel a bit better after you rest. From that day on, I erased the presences in this world, one by one. Who is this? What? Suha's younger brother. Why are you calling me? I secretly used my brother's phone to talk to Preta. Huh? I heard about you from Suha. I think we've met once before. But what's up? Is Suha trying to use you to apologize in his stead? I used the same method to call the golden silk. I broke down Preta and the golden silk with one call. The idol group would occasionally show up on TV screens, but the faces of Preta and the golden silk were not shown. Only shadows fluttered about like scribbles. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. Then, there was a reaction. The data to implement the trauma has been corrupted. Extracting corrupted data from your memory. Failed. The data cannot be recovered. The gap that I created began to puncture the world. Extracting corrupted data from the original owner's memory. Failed. The data cannot be recovered. I hastened my actions. I destroyed the 4 demon lords. The children from the Hellfire residence crumbled away. As soon as I saw them, I changed the characters in the trauma into specters. Each time, the world of the trauma collapsed, little by little. This is rare. Gongja, what are you doing in the teacher's office? My homeroom teacher, the venomous snake, was included. Gongja? Why did you call me into an empty classroom? Eek. Teachers and students should not date in general, but it's also against the school rules. Even the alchemist, who was a math teacher. I heard you asked to have a face-to-face talk. You are a unique student in many different ways, so we allowed it at the request of the student council president. What do you have to say? Even the sword saint, the principal. One at a time. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. The data cannot be recovered. After a fortnight, most of the students and teachers at the school had already been turned into specters. It wasn't just the school that became weird. On the TV, no matter what channel was on, there was a specter in the place of the announcer. Even the people performing live were murmuring with a shadow's voice and face, so everything was incomprehensible. I had also tried to leave town by taking the train as a test. The scenery of the city continued for a while, but at some point, darkness spread beyond the window. The train disappeared when it reached that zone. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. Requesting material from Zrakwa. Failed. Request rejected. The data cannot be recovered. The broken world. A failed eyesore. Gongja, I have to ask you something. One day, after class, the crusader approached me. She looked nervous, somehow. What is it? I can't say it in the classroom. No, it's more like I don't want to say it. The crusader turned her head and glanced behind her. The person sitting at the desk had already turned into a specter. It was the Count. The Count had spoken with me 2 days ago and crumbled into a shadow. The crusader glanced at her friend's appearance and lowered her voice. Let's go to the hallway. We exited the classroom and went into the hallway. So, what is it? I don't know if this sounds weird. No, it definitely sounds weird. But for some reason, I felt like I should consult with you. In the middle of the hallway, where specters came and went. The crusader looked around, greatly unnerved. Something is strange. If you asked me what it was, it'd be hard to say. But I'm certain. This isn't normal. Last weekend, I went out of town with my family. Or I was going to. I prepared a lunch box in the morning. But when I blinked, it was evening. The crusader's shoulders shook a little. At first, I thought it was amnesia. But my family talked about how the outing was very pleasant at the dinner table. I have no memory of the outing, and I can't even remember what I did. The crusader lifted her head again, looking around. Except for a handful of students, there were only wriggling black specters in the classroom, the hallway, and the schoolyard. Something is weird. It's wrong. Maybe I'm the one who became weird. Sorry, Kim Gongja. I'll just make an appointment with a psychiatrist. Maybe I'll be better with some counseling. The very last row in the classroom. I opened my mouth. The student sitting by the window. Do you remember him? The crusader's brows furrowed. More or less, since he's a classmate. I think his name is. Did you know that he was receiving these texts? I took out the Constellation Killer's cell phone and showed it to her. I'll tell you now. They're not faked. As she read the texts, the crusader's face turned white. She was shocked. But her shock was brief, and soon, the crusader yelled in a furious voice. What? Something like this. No, he isn't the type to send a text like this. It's ridiculous. I can't overlook this. It goes way beyond a joke. Are you angry? Of course. Some things can be forgiven because we're kids, but some things cannot. But wounds are wounds, whether it was caused by an adult or a child. Rather, kids can be worse. What are you going to do now? We have evidence. We have to report it to the police right now. I know this kind of problem well. If you file a complaint with the school, the evidence will be taken away and they'll tell you to resolve it among yourselves like friends. It won't be enough if just the two of us went to the police station, so gather as many people as you can and let's go. That's right. The Crusader. This is who you are. Someone who tries to reduce the number of people who are suffering, even by a little. If there was even one person like you in this classroom, it wouldn't have turned out this way. What? Because there's no way you would be a bystander to this sort of thing. There's no way you would let it go, and there's no way you wouldn't notice it. But because there wasn't a single person like you in that large classroom. I closed the phone. That's why this is happening. It's all right. Please disappear. I'll take care of the rest on my own. After I closed and opened my eyes, a faceless specter was swaying. Slowly. I stood in the hall and looked around. The students were talking as they walked past. Small talk, chatting. They laughed as if it was fun, and even if it wasn't, they still laughed. They were sharing the time of their youth. When a teacher passed by, they bowed their heads and greeted him. That was. Their voices were nothing but white noise. The words failed to form sentences, and sentences failed to become text. There was a bright motto on a poster at the stairwell. That was. The World of the Constellation Killer. Chapter 135. Little by little, the world shrank. First was beyond city limits. Then the downtown area. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. The data cannot be recovered. From the outskirts of the city, erosive darkness encroached the streets. Writhing. Slinking. The darkness was like a tentacle, alive and moving. I decided to call that ominous, dark fog the void. I'm going to school a bit early today. Many things became unseeable. I could no longer see people's faces. I couldn't see the church's steeple. I couldn't see the signs plastered on the walls of the shopping mall like bark on a tree. The world was marked by the void. I have to go to the farm and feed the rabbits. However, there were things that I could finally see now. The farm?
Yeah.
Behind the school. Well. The Constellation Killer sighed. There's no way someone like you would know. Anyway, there's a place where we raise rabbits and chickens. I have to feed them. Was there such a place? Thinking back, the orphanage had an area to raise animals, too, although it soon disappeared. In the past, did middle and high schools have animal farms? Why do you have to feed them? Shouldn't there be someone else in charge? There used to be a club for animal care. But last year, a foreign woman broke into the school at night and jumped off the roof with a newborn baby. Don't you remember? The baby fell into the farm. Since then, applications to the club completely stopped. It was the first I was hearing about it. However, the Constellation Killer's tone implied he was talking about a very infamous incident. It seemed a bunch of things had happened at this school. Why did a foreign lady come to a school in a whole different country with a kid? A teacher here apparently fathered the kid by accident while on a business trip abroad. It was a middle school teacher, not a high school one, muttered the Constellation Killer. Anyway, we don't have an animal caretaking club anymore. The middle school class presidents are supposed to take turns feeding the animals, but there's no way middle schoolers are going to stick to it, you know? So the security guard, me, and some middle school kid take care of feeding the animals between the three of us. That was a corner of the world that I never knew of. The animal farm. There, we imprisoned rabbits and chickens in cramped cages, making that small space their whole world. Was it not being properly managed? The smell of chicken and rabbit urine was effusive. The feed, which had carelessly been poured in great quantities at once, was repeatedly soaked by rain and dried again, making it reek. Seriously. Someone just pretended to do the work and left again. The constellation killer frowned. If they were gonna do this, they should have just skipped out instead. It's worse than if they didn't do it. Should I help? It's fine. I have to take care of it anyway. The constellation killer rolled up his sleeves. Just stand there. Or go to class first. The constellation killer took out the rotten heap of fuzz. He threw away the straw in a large sack. Then, he took out a broom and a rake from storage and cleaned up the hutch. He seemed well versed with the task. The constellation killer picked up a rubber hose and sprinkled water over the farm. Shaw. In a world where most things could not be seen, a world corroded by the void, a high school student sprayed water at 6:40 a.m. behind Shinseo Middle and High School. It was tranquil. The water reflected the color of the dawn. I was peeping between the cracks that had opened up in the world. How filthy. How can you be even dirtier than the math teacher? You smell really bad. The world. It was shrinking. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. Starting with the things that were meaningless to the constellation killer, to step by step. The data cannot be recovered. The mountains surrounding the city were engulfed in the dark fog. The world was cornered. As days passed, the void gradually tightened around us. The roads ended. On the broken path, specters constantly disappeared and reappeared. They flickered. In the constellation killer's world, it didn't matter at all where people came from or where they went. Humans weren't characters in this world. Weeds coiled in the gaps of the blocks on the sidewalk. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. On one edge of the dump, there was a drooping ginkgo tree that had not been cut down. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. In the evening, the red sun set. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. Finally, the void completely surrounded the school. Raviel was standing at the school gate. Beyond the gate was pitch-black darkness. Raviel. School had been dismissed. As specters walked in front and were absorbed by the void, Raviel stood, quiet and still. She didn't turn her head even when I called out to her. That's right. I did feel that something was wrong. She only whispered. If you think about it, it's weird that I asked to be called by my foreign name. Ban Si. That is the name I was given. But for some reason, I felt obsessively that I should be called Raviel. I cannot even recall how I met you. No. Saying that I can't think of it is misleading. I received a confession from you at the school festival last year. Prior to that, I thought favorably of you. It was easy for us to start dating. Raviel turned to look at me. But I wonder if that is the truth. Gongja, our love is not so simple. We would never love so easily. Kiss me. Right now. I carefully placed my hand on Raviel's shoulder. With my left hand, I held her chin. I lowered my head a bit and met her lips. As expected. Raviel smiled. It's pounding. She touched my ear. There is no lie in my love. I wouldn't love you so much just because you're a bit handsome and talk well. But to say that we're a couple that will go down in the history of Shinseo Middle and High School. Tell them to shut up. You and I are the best couple in the entire universe. Yes. If my love is not a lie, then my memory must be distorted. This, now, must be a hallucination or a dream. Gongja, am I dreaming of you? Or are you dreaming of me? I am dreaming of you, Raviol. Oh ho. How fascinating. Raviol crooked her finger and stroked a chin. Not her chin, mine. I will be the only partner you love. Yes. Even when you dream, even if it's only a dream, it is only appropriate that I am always in the position of the one you adore. I am the only one who deserves that place. It's true. I praise you, my lover. You love me very well. Raviol laughed. Now, close your eyes. Don't you dare open your eyes. Call out my name with your lips. Understood? You cannot open your eyes. If you open your eyes by yourself, I will punish you. I closed my eyes. Raviol. Yes. Raviol. Ivansha. It is the name of the person I love. Then. The sensation on my chin disappeared. I opened my eyes. Raviol was gone. I didn't see her figure falling into the shadows. Until the last moment. That was the Ivansha's method. The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. The data cannot be recovered. There was no hint of Raviol's breath here now. The world became that much smaller. Ding, dong, dang, dong. The speakers installed on campus cried out. A broadcasting club member, who lost their shape without me ever knowing their name, spoke. This is the broadcasting department, notifying all students remaining on school grounds. Other than the students who will participate in nighttime self-study, please go home now. That moment. The void that lurked beyond the school gate gushed. It was like a river in a flash flood. I stepped back. Tentacles of fog stretched out from the void. The tentacles bound themselves around the school gate in an instant. The plaque that marked Shinseo High School was devoured, and soon, the entire school gate was buried in the darkness. It's finally falling apart. The world of trauma began to collapse. What are you doing there? Someone spoke from behind me. It was the Constellation Killer. The Constellation Killer was wearing a worn-out bag, looking at me like I was absurd. Aren't you going home? Well, if you don't want to, don't. It was getting uncomfortable staying there without your parents' permission. I get that you really want to apologize to me, so let's end this. Something like this only makes us both feel weird. The Constellation Killer walked toward where the school gate had been. As he tried to pass by me, I grabbed his wrist. Then, I quickly pulled him back. Hey. Ouch. What? What is it? The Constellation Killer avoided stepping into the void by a hair's breadth. Even now, the black fog was gushing over the school gate, over the fence, and into the schoolyard. If we were swallowed up by that, everything would be over. Follow me for a bit. Again? Where are you trying to go this time? A place where you can live even a little bit longer. A place where you can breathe. What? This place is already dangerous. Quickly, let's go. I dragged the Constellation Killer across campus. The void encroached on the school like it was chasing us. I don't know what you're talking about. Kim Gongja, did you know you became really weird a month ago? Why are you so scared? Just what are you working so hard for? You've never been that kind of person. I made a promise to live desperately, no matter what. My master swung her sword even as the world was ending. My lover defended her nation even when the world looped and repeated itself. There are people like them in the world. I work hard because I want to be with such people. Truly and sincerely, I have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. There was also a person who endlessly abandoned himself to commit to what he believed was right. We entered the school building. Still, the void pushed inside like it didn't know how to stop. Specters wandered the halls. But among them, the class president, with the face of the Black Dragon Master, stood blankly in front of the women's bathroom. I hadn't managed to break down the class president yet. Because the class president was the only person who bowed her head when the Constellation Killer committed suicide in the last trauma. Weird. Why do I feel this strange guilt from entering the women's bathroom? The Black Dragon Master seemed to be worrying about her gender identity all of a sudden. It was a time of many troubles. I approached while holding the Constellation Killer's wrist and grabbed the wrist of the Black Dragon Master with my other hand. Huh? You, too. Follow me. You can't be here now. What? Wait. Huh? What? Kim Gongja? What are you? The Black Dragon Master protested in confusion when she suddenly noticed the Constellation Killer. Her surprised expression hardened at once. The Black Dragon Master frowned, lowered her head, and followed as I dragged her wrist. Warning! The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. The data cannot be recovered. The trauma cannot be sustained. The void overtook the first floor of the school. I dragged 2 people up the stairs. Quickly. Beyond the first floor, up to the second floor, past the 3rd floor, crossing the 4th floor, and leaping to the 5th floor. Behind me, the Constellation Killer and the Black Dragon Master were gasping, but it couldn't be helped. The void was rising with terrifying speed. The slogan on the stairs sank under the black. The black fog turned into dark fluid and swallowed up the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors. There was only one place left in this world. Huff, huff, huff. I'm nauseous. I stood in front of the iron door to the roof. 4 layers of chains were wrapped around the iron door handle. It was a place that couldn't be entered unless you were a teacher, but I used aura on my fingers and simply broke the chains. Let's go out. Huh. The Constellation Killer, still breathing heavily, looked dazedly at the iron door. It's open. Wait a moment. We can't go up to the rooftop. It's against the school rules. The Black Dragon Master shouted in a panic. If it weren't for the void I saw creeping forth over her shoulder, I might have respected the school rules a bit more. I forced the Constellation Killer and the Black Dragon Master to the rooftop. Then, thud. I shut the iron door. I quietly stared at the door. It was silent. Thankfully, the void did not break out to the rooftop. This piece would probably be allowed for only a short time, but for now, we had escaped the overbearing void. Good. We'll be fine for a while. What exactly is fine? The Black Dragon Master was furious. Don't you know how sensitive our school is about rooftop access? There was that whole uproar last year in the middle school. Oh, my God. It's all right. When the teachers find out I've come up here. My God. You bastard. Take responsibility for my college applications. The world was completely encased in the void. Looking down through the rooftop fence, I saw no schoolyard, only the pitch-black darkness. Same for the whole campus. The main building of the middle school was no different. Only 3 people remained in this trauma. Class president. What? You knew what was happening in our class, didn't you? The last 3 remaining. The perpetrator. The victim. So? And finally, the bystander. The class president with the face of the Black Dragon Master stared at me. Do you have something to say to me? Chapter 136. Surviving, 1. The Black Dragon Master stared at me. You went around calling him the second-year loser of Shinseo High School or whatever, Kim Gongja. Thanks to you, some weird stuff is happening in our class. The Black Dragon Master's eyes held deep contempt. But this contempt was short-lived. The Black Dragon Master frowned for a moment before her face returned to its previously expressionless state. It was as though her own feelings made her tired. Even a sigh would not look as expressionless as that face. Forget it. I don't even want to talk to you about this. Just talking about it makes me feel bad. Damn it. I would have gone to a different high school if I knew there'd be bullying here. You're the class president. You're responsible for what happens in the class. So what? Are you trying to say it's my fault? The Black Dragon Master's tone dripped with sarcasm. How amazing. I heard that you've been hanging out with lately and meeting other students one after the other. Kim Gongja repented. Kim Gongja has changed. Even the teachers were complimenting you in the staff room. Good for you. There was a cold sneer on the Black Dragon Master's face. We, on the other hand, were normal. Perhaps we sent a text like that to the Constellation Killer as a mean joke. But it was only a joke. It was just a brief deviation from the norm. Everyone made jokes and slipped sometimes, so we were still normal. Maybe we made fun of the Constellation Killer once. But that was a mistake. We didn't mean it. We didn't do it on purpose, we were just swept up into the atmosphere and laughed with the others. We did nothing wrong. Think carefully about what's important to you and pull yourself together. Yes, teacher. And so, the class pushed one of our classmates aside. Even death or suicide hadn't been able to awaken our guilt. Plus, the one that murdered me was you. Don't forget. You killed me. Plus, except for one person. The Black Dragon Master was the only one who didn't say, yes, teacher. She said nothing. Only bowed her head without a word. Seriously, don't do this to me. One single bystander remained silent while numerous perpetrators stood proudly. I did my best. I tried to stop it when I was a first year. Damn it. And there were hundreds of reasons why someone might remain silent. Because of you guys, I decided to do some investigating. Did you know? This school is affiliated with Seryun University. There are 10 board members. And among them, Kim Gongja is your girlfriend's parents. You didn't know, I bet. You didn't even know that, but you just bullied like it was natural, right? Even the president of the Seryun Presbyterian Church is on the board. That's my family's church. We attend every weekend. The Black Dragon Master covered her forehead with her hand. Why did I have to learn all of this because of the *T that you guys did? Just, don't do so much, please. I'm a second year now, too. I sleep for 4 or 5 hours a day because of studying. I'm busy. I entered the school as a scholarship student just like. I don't know how you guys can just laugh and enjoy your school life. Ill will was easy. I don't know if you harass others without thinking, but goodwill was impossible. I was so desperate. This school has a fucking scholarship committee, and our Ogo great homeroom teacher is there as the second-year student's head. You didn't know that, did you? I bet you don't even need to know. I mentioned to our homeroom teacher and... Please. Stop it. I don't want to know this. It's all disgusting. You, our homeroom teacher, the school, everything. I'm busy with my own life, so take care of things yourselves. Sorry. One reason was enough to commit an act of ill will. But you needed hundreds of reasons for goodwill. Sorry? Ha. How sorry are you, really? No. Fuck. It's too late. Don't apologize to me. Don't you dare apologize, Kim Gongja. I don't need an apology, and I don't deserve an apology. And you don't deserve to apologize. You're trash. Just die as trash. Live as trash until the day you die. I'm begging you, never cross my path after we graduate. I'm sorry. I said don't apologize, you trash bastard. The Black Dragon Master kicked my shin. Creak. My bones rattled slightly. Then, she huffed and slapped me in the face. Violence like curses continued. I let the Black Dragon Master do what she wanted to my body and said, this boy. He tried to commit suicide. The Black Dragon Master's hands stopped. He would have jumped a month ago. From this very spot. Silence descended upon the rooftop. The Black Dragon Master turned her head. It was only then that she looked at the Constellation Killer for the first time. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, but no sound came out. Is this true? She was stiff. Like it was difficult for her to talk to the person in front of him. You tried to die. She spoke carefully. The Constellation Killer looked at the Black Dragon Master with a blank expression. That's right. I don't know how Kim Gongja knew, but he's right. I tried to die. I had no idea that that was what you were thinking, class president. The rooftop became silent once again. Slowly. The Black Dragon Master covered her face with both hands. I'm not sorry. A quiet sob leaked through her fingers. I don't feel sorry for you. It's just. When I was a first year, I accidentally found out about the school's board of directors. I gave up because I thought nothing would come of it even if I revealed everything. During our second year, I tried to talk to our homeroom teacher, but I gave up in the end. I'm just that kind of person. Please remember me as that kind of person. But, don't die. Don't die. Why must you? You can't die. You can't die because of trash. You can't. You have to live.
Yeah.
If you live, you can get into a good university, make money, and get out of this godforsaken city. I thought about that too, muttered the Constellation Killer. But I thought that these bastards would forget. I thought that they would live well while pretending that nothing ever happened. No, I don't think they'd even remember. I hated that the most. I wanted to spite these bastards. Since they'd forget it anyway. The Constellation Killer looked at the Black Dragon Master. I'm sorry, class president. I wasn't trying to hurt someone like you. The Black Dragon Master fell to her knees. She held her breath, her face covered. She clenched her teeth and tried to hold back any sounds. The force of her silence caused the Black Dragon Master's shoulder to shake. The Constellation Killer opened his mouth. There was someone. He bent his knees. I didn't think there'd be anyone. Lower. Until he was the same height as the Black Dragon Master. I'm glad that I didn't die a month ago. The Constellation Killer slowly wrapped his arms around the Black Dragon Master's shoulders. The Black Dragon Master flinched. The Constellation Killer leaned his head a bit closer to the Black Dragon Master. I'm glad there was even a single person who was worth my forgiveness. I'm so glad. The Black Dragon Master stopped holding her breath. She broke down. The Black Dragon Master couldn't hug the Constellation Killer. She just remained kneeling, letting out the cries that tore out from her heart. The Constellation Killer hugged his classmate as she did. "I'm sorry." The Black Dragon Master's body began to crumble away. "I'm sorry. 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 I'm so sorry." But it was just her skin that melted into shadows. She did not become a specter. The Black Dragon Master, whose face melted off to reveal someone else, cried out, "Don't die. Please. I'm begging you. You have to live." It was the face of someone I knew. And it was a voice I heard from somewhere. "You can live. We can live. We can live better lives. You have to live. I'll try a little harder, and because I'll try harder, together let's." The degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. The iron door to the rooftop was being devoured by the void. Black fog slowly crept through the cracks on the iron door like tentacles. Soundlessly, they grabbed the iron door. Then, they swallowed it. The void, which had devoured the 5th floor, climbed up the school wall and flowed onto the fence of the roof. "No one cares about you. No one, nobody, not one of them. You can't die because of those beasts. You have to live. You can't let them ruin your life. Struggle and survive, study.
Yeah.
Enter university, Anne. Go to another city." I could see the person beneath the Black Dragon Master's skin. "Let's live for all the unfortunate children." At that moment. Let's make time for children who are less fortunate than us. We can do it. I know we can. I'll help you. I did a lot of research. I studied. It isn't some dumb dream. If we really try, we can. Something cut into my back. First, go to the Department of Social Welfare. I need a license. An electric current surged in my head. To live here, to survive in the world, we have to be strong. You have to surround yourself in armor so that other people won't look down on you or bother you. Let's study together. I'll help you. I can help you. What university you go to, what qualifications you have. They might seem useless right now, but you can do a lot more with it than without it. We can do what we want to do. It's power. We have to become strong first. Let's help the children together. On my own. It would be difficult.
Yeah.
I might not be able to bear it. I might scar the children. But with the 2 of us. 3. If 4 people join in, we can do anything. We'll be able to do anything. Director. Let's work hard. The director of my orphanage. This world is not everything. It can't be. We can make a world. Small. Let's start small. We can make a world with just the 2 of us. Please don't die. Together. Let's live in a different world together. The young director's face. ... You haven't done anything wrong. ... His voice overlapped with the director's long tired voice. Now that I thought about it, the director had always been too wary about showing that he loved us. Don't get twisted because of a guy like me. He always seemed afraid. The Constellation Killer stroked the young director's head. I don't think we can make much money. We won't make much. It seems like it'll be hard. It'll be really hard. However, I think it would be better than now. The Constellation Killer smiled. I haven't been studying since the 2nd semester of our first year. It'll be a bit tough. It's all right. It's not too late. Right now, it's not too late for anything.
Yeah.
Class president. In this world, the degree of the trauma's implementation is decreasing. Let's survive together. The data cannot be recovered. The rooftop collapsed. The school melted. And the bell announcing the dismissal rang. Trauma implementation has ended. The possibilities and what-ifs were swallowed by the black void. Even the constellation killer's smile. Even the director's childhood, which I never knew about. Even the two classmates, one crying and one smiling. The past. The time of the failed past. The regret. The remorse. Confirming that the subject's psyche is maintained. It all disappeared. The penalty is ending. The world was immersed in noise. I opened my eyes. Chapter 137. Surviving, 2. When I opened my eyes, all I saw was a dark abyss. I looked around in every direction, but I could only see darkness. It was the underworld I returned to every time I died. Your death has satisfied the skill condition. The constellation killer's skills are being randomly copied. I stared blankly, shocked. Naturally, I knew that the constellation killer's story took place in the past. However, that the past also contained the director's childhood. That, I never expected. The constellation killer and my orphanage director were classmates. They attended the same school. They were in the same class. They lived in the same time. For one of them, time had stopped forever. For the other, the hour hand had stopped for the rest of his life. One clock was broken. The other clock was damaged. Why? Anger weighed on my heart. Why is it always the good men who end up damaged and broken? Why should the person who was hurt die while the one who hurt them is fine? Why did the world become a hell only for the one who feels guilty? My anger settled, but I couldn't be at ease. My emotions subsided. But my subdued emotions did not disappear. They were merely piling on top of each other. The surface of my mind rose a little bit. A surface that would overflow and become a torrent someday. Cough. A voice flowed into my heated mind. It was Bei Hurayong. The best feeling in the world is always catching a zombie bastard off guard. I've seen a lot of things since becoming a ghost, but there's still nothing better than seeing a defeated Kim zombie. Cuckoo. What do you think? Isn't the 50th floor tough? The constellation killer isn't an easy prey, huh? Right, so do you still think it was a good idea to weasel your way up to the 50th floor? All of this is karma for what you did, bastard. Bei Hurayong had a sly smile on his face. It was almost as if I'd only fought the constellation killer a short while ago. I could guess it from Bei Hurayong's tone. He didn't enter the trauma with me this time. Until now, we'd experienced the journey through the trauma together. Starting with the Hellfire residents, Preta, Master, Raviel. Bei Hurayong sometimes complained about the trauma and sometimes remained silent. Nevertheless, he had always been with me. This time was different. For a month, I had been experiencing the trauma on my own. I had a nightmare. Huh? Bei Hurayong blinked. A nightmare? What nightmare? It was a trauma. This trauma was a bit strange. Sword Emperor, you weren't with me, and the constellation killer's mind wasn't fully recreated. Like there was an error there. I told him about what I experienced in the trauma. I recreated it. Of course, I didn't tell him that he had been my father. If I brought it up, his hair would probably turn white. Beihurayang was lost in thought for a while after hearing my story. That's strange, isn't it? It doesn't make sense that I wasn't there with you. In the first place, I'm only called a ghost for convenience. In truth, I am a skill. Beihurayang was right. Plus. Sword constellation. Rank A+. Effect, a ghost from another world. He cleared the 99th floor in another world but failed the 100th floor and died. The resentment remained, causing him to become a ghost. He cannot interfere with the physical world, but it is possible to tamper with the owner's mind. Seek advice from his rich experience and amazing skills. However, no one can see the ghost except for the owner. This skill was copied from Hunter Marcus Callenbury. Plus. In the end, Beihurayang's true identity was a skill. He had memories of his past life, but he was restrained to a skill card. In other words, I am someone who lives off of you. Should I say a mental tenant? Unless you forcibly remove my skill card, there is no reason why I shouldn't enter a trauma with you. However, Beihurayang had not been able to participate in this trauma. I guess. What's going on? Something strange.
Yeah.
The two of us pondered side by side in the dark space. Time passed slowly, but we still were unable to think of an answer. Eventually, Beihurayang got tired of all the thinking and exclaimed, "Ah, enough. I don't want to think about this anymore. In any case, if you just remember the strange feeling, you will get an answer someday. Hurry up and pick one of that constellation killer guy's skills. It's been a long time since we had a magic skill. That golden silk or something only had a constellation's blessings, so her skills were trash." Perhaps in response to Beihurayang's words, cards began appearing from the darkness. The skill cards are being created. Please select a skill card. In total, 10 cards appeared before me. It was a procession of silver and gold that flew through the air like they had wings. Now, let's peruse the Constellation Killer's collection. What the hell? This bastard's totally cheating, keeping all these dope skills. That's why hunters who focus on skills are annoying. Huh? Look at this one. Beihurayang seemed excited as he read the backs of the cards. Among them, 2 skills caught my attention. Plus. Puppeteer's Parade. Rank S. Effect, in some world, there lived an old puppeteer. The puppeteer was afraid of receiving love, but he wasn't strong enough to endure eternal solitude. Let's make another me. So, the puppeteer designed it. Let the other me be loved. Let it live with people, among people. And if it gets hurt, I'll throw it away, whispered the puppeteer. Erase it forever. Countless puppets lived. Countless puppets were discarded. This skill is a black art for the weak. The ability to choose or throw away memories. You can make 13 puppets that have the exact same appearance and abilities as you. When one puppet dies, another one awakens. Broken dolls can be repaired. It is your imitation of immortality. A fabricated eternity. However, memories are not shared between puppets. Plus. There was the Constellation Killer's secret. There are a total of 13 puppets. So what happened to the Constellation Killer's true body? Was the true body also included in the puppets? Or did the Constellation Killer have a separate body that was asleep somewhere else? Then I heard another secret. Plus. Salvation of a Torn Goddess. Rank A+. Effect, there was once a goddess who was devoted to a certain warrior. Although the goddess was torn apart by the warrior, she still wished to stand beside him. The goddess fell and was sealed in this skill card. The goddess replaces memories with abilities. You can strengthen your abilities and might by giving your memories to the goddess. The more important the memory is to you, the stronger the buff you receive. However, the strengthening effect does not last long. That goddess was probably the guardian goddess. And the warrior must be the constellation killer. There was little doubt. The guardian goddess was divided into 5 parts: idol, compassion, prayer, sacrifice, and salvation. With this, I reaped 4 parts of the goddess. The last part, salvation, was in the form of one of the constellation killer's skills. Humph. Bei Hurayong snorted. All these skills are creepy because we don't truly know who the constellation killer is. It's foreboding. They're all good abilities, but it's unnerving. I don't know why the constellations would be so interested in a broken human. I nodded. I've decided what to choose. The cons far outweigh the pros, though? Bei Hurayong objected. Just pass this time. You don't need puppet parade or salvation of a torn goddess now. I hate to admit it, but your skill list is pretty complete. Except for your Goblin High Society. Goblin High Society is a skill that will soar one day. It's your head that will soar. No, it has already flown beautifully once. In any case, if you take a stupid skill now, you'll damage your synergy. Yes. I know that. But there is something I can use. I had to defeat the constellation killer. But victory didn't mean I had to get rid of him. I can do much better. I would make the constellation killer admit that his method was wrong. It wasn't about simply overwhelming him with brute force. Rather, I would make my method defeat the constellation killer's method. That is what victory was. The constellation killer. I reached out for a card. La Fanta Egem. Thinking about the hunter who had multiple titles. Thinking about the man whose first name I still don't know. Selection complete. The skill is being copied. You are regressing to 24 hours ago. Let's end our old nightmare. When I regressed a day, I hadn't even cleared the fairy tale world yet. I spent a month in the constellation killer's trauma world. But not even a single day had passed in the tower. Eventually, I cleared the fairy tale world again. I knew that the evangelist of everlasting happiness was planning a surprise attack in advance, so I cleared it much more easily than before. However, the willpower and stamina that I used were the same. Next time, I'm going to take a day off before I climb the tower. Once again, I realized the importance of save points. Count Nim. Immediately after clearing the fairy tale world and returning to the Great Library, I spoke to the Count. I have a small favor to ask you.
Oh.
What is it? Treasure of our tower, prize of our Sangreon. Tell me anything. I'll help you. The Count greeted me more enthusiastically than usual. The shape of her mouth was curved like the letter W. Was it because the price to clear the stage was much lower than she thought it would be? For a moment, I couldn't help but remember the Count I'd encountered in the trauma. He sent that sort of text. Wasn't he really crazy? I froze. What's wrong? The Sangreon Guild Master in front of me tilted her head to the side. You're pale all of a sudden. No. It's nothing. I just blanked out for a moment. I quickly shook my head, trying to rid my mind of the thoughts. The classmate in the trauma simply had the Count's appearance. In the end, it was fake. I couldn't compare the fake to the person in front of me. It was incredibly disrespectful to the Count. Did you put too much energy into the apocalypse just now? Be careful. You need to be careful while you're young so you don't go nuts when you're old. Anyway, what's the favor? I would like to send a letter to the outside world, I said. It doesn't matter if it's not a letter, but there is someone I need to contact as soon as possible. Count, you have the ability to interact with the outside world. Please help me send the letter. Oh ho? Of course. It's easy. The Count held her fan. If it doesn't have to be a letter, you can use more convenient methods. Which country are you sending the letter to? It'd be a bit hard to send letters to countries with governments that have collapsed. That's fine. I'd like to send it to the country where I was born. Death King's birth country.
Ah.
Then it's fine. There is an ambassador in that country, so we can get in touch with them right away. Let's see. Where is that woman? The Count looked around. It wasn't just us in the great library, but every hunter with an epithet. The Count pointed to one of them with her fan. Communications officer. Madam CO. Come over here for a bit. What is it now? A middle-aged female hunter approached us. The 7th rank hunter. It was the wide-range communications officer. The wide-range communications officer wore a sari, a traditional Indian dress, around her shoulders, and she frowned the entire way as she walked over to us. Perhaps she didn't get along with the Count. Let me introduce you. This is my friend, the communications officer, and she comes from the same homeland as I do. Ahaha, but the difference between our origins is like heaven and earth. If you just called me over here to talk nonsense, then I'll be on my way. Whoa, whoa. Calm down, Madam Brahmin. I'm going to set up a sanctuary to talk with the outside world, so please connect us for a while. It's a country with an ambassador, so it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. Why should I? It's not mine, but the Death King's request. The wide-range communications officer turned to look at me. I put my hands together and politely bowed my head. Please. The wide-range communications officer also brought her hands together and bowed. She looked back and forth between me and the Count before sighing heavily as if she'd given up. If it was some crude man's request, I would have declined it immediately. But Death King, I also watched from afar as you devoted yourself to the tower. Your commitment should be rewarded. I'll help you.
Yeah.
As expected, you get along well with noble people. Like calls to like. If you run your mouth one more time, I'm leaving. Oh my, don't be like that. You should be more generous. But fine, fine. Hey, I get it. Let's just do this. The Count smiled before taking something out of her pocket. It was a small pouch. The Count then took a handful of glittering, purple powder before sprinkling it in a circle on the library floor. The Great Mother Vina. Vina. A wish is a prayer, please let it not be torn by screams. Let us be by your side as you stay by our side. Make this space your sanctuary. Whoosh. Purple light came out of the purple powder. The area of purple light was similar in size to a public phone booth. Then, the wide-range communications officer turned to me. Give me your smartphone. Ah. Yes. I handed my phone to the communications officer, who tapped the phone 3 times with a bent finger. Tap, tap, tap. It looked as though she'd drawn a triangle with her fingertips. Go through. Connect. When noise reaches someone, it becomes a sound, and when there is a person here and a person there, connections sing and the world makes a choir. The smartphone was then wrapped in blue light. The communications officer nodded slightly. Take it. I took my phone back. The Count beamed. Enter the sanctuary, Death King. The communications officer grimaced. If you make a call, it will be received. If you send mail, they will reply. Call charges are measured separately, but I can pay that much for you. However, following the agreement with the outside world, all communications must be monitored to ensure they remain within the scope of international law. That shouldn't be a problem, though. It doesn't matter if it's a crime as long as you don't mention it directly. Well, if you want to send a secret message, tell me separately. There are ways to bypass the laws. The two of them spoke casually, but this was a collaboration between the hunters ranked 5th and 7th. Only a handful of people could ever enjoy such a privilege. Yes. Thank you. Holding my smartphone, I entered the sanctuary. Then, I pressed it, the first phone number I memorized in my life. It was a number I hadn't dialed in years. But human memory was strange, for no matter how much time had passed, it was not a number I could ever forget. Ring. Ring. The phone's connecting sound rang for a while. If the other person changed their number, then this would be pointless. But he said that he would never change his number so that we could call at any time. He didn't lie. Hello? I couldn't speak. Hello? Who is this? The voice was a little older than the cries I heard on the rooftop of the trauma. It was a little more tired. But the essence hadn't changed, and I regretted that it took me so long to hear this voice that hadn't changed. I should have called sooner. Regardless of whether I abandoned the outside world and entered the tower, I shouldn't have abandoned the people. Director. It's me, Gongja. Kim Gongja. Silence fell for a moment over the call. Right. It's been a long time. The director. The oldest voice in my memory reverberated. Chapter 138. Surviving, 3. I thought you might call one day. I saw that you've been well. I'm sorry for taking so long to contact you. I should have. You're busy with life and work. I know what it's like to be that age. I heard a small cough over the phone, and the director cleared his throat. Sometimes, strangers come and ask if you are from our orphanage. At first, I thought you had done something terrible. But the others from your generation showed me a video and cleared up the misunderstanding. By the way, you call yourself Death King? You have an interesting naming sense. I didn't choose the title myself. The tower. Of course. It's been a while since I last heard your voice. I'm relieved. Gongja? What's wrong? I grasped the phone. It pressed down the emotions that climbed up my throat. There's something I have to ask you, Director. Say it. No, wait a minute. How serious is it? Tell me that first. It's very serious. Probably more serious than anything I've ever asked you about. Then give me 2 minutes, no, 3 minutes. I'm lying on the sofa right now. I'll get up, get some coffee, and listen to you properly. Don't hang up. Wait just 3 minutes. Okay. Now that I thought about it, his life must have been so difficult. I could only imagine the kind of malice he had to suffer in order to become such a good man. If we gathered all the good people in this world, we would be able to see all the malice of the world as well. How is the orphanage these days? Are you healthy? Seeing that you're changing the subject like this, it really must be serious. I'm fine. There are more teachers now. I'm basically director in name only, and I don't have to do much. The sponsorships have increased. And the food is more delicious. That's good to hear. I'm in my office now. Tell me what you wanted to say. I took a deep breath. Director. When you were younger, did you graduate from Shinseo Middle and High School? The other end of the line became eerily silent. It was tense. I heard a liquid splashing. The director had taken a sip of his coffee and gulped down the black water. Yes. I graduated from Shinseo High. Even now, it's a pretty prestigious place. By any chance? I wished it wasn't. Were you the class president in your second year? Maybe it had just been an illusion created by the trauma. Everything I saw could have been fake. The director could just be a good person who enjoyed a normal, happy school life. I hoped. Silence befell once again. You're right. Then, the director's voice sounded. I was the class president. It's already been decades since then. Both the director and I fell silent. My heart throbbed as I thought of the things I had to say. The atmosphere felt heavy. Maybe the director felt it too, as he kept his mouth closed, waiting for me. Director. Speak. When you were class president. By any chance. On the roof of the school. Was there anyone like that? The sound of breathing stopped. Yes. The director said. There was. My nightmare proved to be reality. I never talked about it properly before, but... Yes. There was. The hallways I walked, the chains on the door to the school roof that looked down at, the desolate wasteland of a schoolyard, the shack in the middle of the dump, all of them, without exception, were true. Only. Don't die. Please. I'm begging you. Together. Let's live in a different world together. Only the ending was a lie.
Yeah.
Class president. In this world, let's survive together. The things that should have been false were true. The one thing that needed the most to be true was false. That was the story of and the director. Director. I could barely speak. Do you remember that person's name? No one in this world knew his name. He was a man from the wilderness. The people of the empire named him Lafanta to honor him. He was the killer of constellations. Thus, the people of the tower called him the Constellation Killer. He was a man who had been abandoned by the outside world. No one tried to remember him. So now, there was only one person in the world who could say his name. Kim Yul. Someone called out a name for the sake of one person. That child's name is Kim Yul, Gongja. I closed my eyes. I remembered the conversation I had with the crusader in the school hallway. The very last row in the classroom. The student sitting by the window. Do you remember him? More or less, since he's a classmate. I think his name is. The noise was removed. Kim Yul. There was someone with that name. I don't feel sorry for you, Kim Yul. He was small enough to be covered by the curtains whenever the wind blew through the classroom window. He was a child who quietly took out a notebook and looked through it before class began. He was a child who yanked the chain on the iron door even though he knew it wouldn't open. I'm sorry, Kim Yul. I'm sorry. Decades ago. Before I was born. I'm so sorry. Such a child had existed in this world. Gongja? And there was someone who had lived those decades. Are you crying? No. Never mind. Anyway, where did you hear about Kim Yul? I didn't think anyone remembered. Someone who was smart enough to enter such a prestigious school with a scholarship. Who was so zealous that he remained at the top of his class even in such a prestigious place. who studied for 4 or 5 hours every day when he could have been sleeping. To be someone who could create the future he wanted. What kind of dream did he have when he entered high school? What kind of future did he envision? I don't know how you found out about him, really. However, this person saw. He saw humans. Beasts. Death. No one cares about you. No one, nobody, not one of them. At that time, one person's time stopped. And for the other person, the freedom of choice that everyone deserved disappeared. The director devoted the rest of his life to prove something. At that time, there was a child named Kim Yul. Director, he's here. What are you talking about? Kim Yul. Director's classmate. That child. I still don't understand what you're saying. He lived in a garbage dump at the foot of the mountain. That Kim Yul. The very last row in the classroom. The seat by the window. He sat there. I continued. The collar of his school uniform was always dirty. The guy who was dating the student council president was a bastard who bullied him. His older brother was a singer. Because he was being harassed by the class through text messages, Kim Yul was forced to hand over the phone that wasn't even his. Did you know that there was a small farm behind the school? They reared rabbits and chickens. It was supposed to be taken care of by the farming club, but no one wanted to do it after a foreigner jumped with her newborn. That's why Kim Yul started taking care of it. How? The director's voice shook. Gongja, how do you? Director, you tried to stop it. You've been trying to stop it since the first year. But after your investigations, you stopped because the main culprit's parents were on the school board, didn't you? The president of the church you attended was also a member, right? Seryun Presbyterian Church. You told your homeroom teacher, but you couldn't do anything more because of your scholarship. How? He's here, director. I held the phone and dropped my head. He's here. There was a long silence. 4 days. Then, the director spoke again. No. Give me a week. The student, whose time was stopped decades ago, spoke in a voice that sounded older and wearier. I'll come there. A week passed in an instant. During that week, the director liquidated all of his assets. Anyone could enter the tower, but you could not bring anything from the outside world. In other words, the director had given up everything he had achieved, earned, and collected in his life. I was thinking of retiring anyway. It had been a long time since I saw the director, but he looked much older than I remembered. I found someone to be my replacement. There were still some things in the region that needed to be done, but what can the government officials do now that I've come to the tower? They'll have to figure it out themselves. Welcome, director. I'm not the director anymore, but call me whatever you like. The director smiled bitterly. Naturally, as someone who had only just entered the tower, the director didn't have a title. People without epithets had not yet been allowed to enter the Great Library, but I talked to the corner librarian and succeeded in making an exception for the director. Coming here, I can see how successful you've become. Everywhere I go, I only hear about you, Gongja. After entering the tower, dozens of people gathered at the entrance to guide me. Well, I have a bit of influence in the tower. I'm currently number 2 in the rankings, director. You were always last when it came to studying. The director looked at me with new eyes. Princess Pyongyang could reform the foolish Ondel Dot. His gaze reminded me of what I saw in the trauma. While I was overwhelmed with emotion, the director was greeted by the rest of my colleagues. Aha! So you are the one who raised Death King. I am called the Heretic Questioner. Please take care of me. I am the Black Dragon Master. I will forever be indebted to Death King. The Death King is also the vice head of our guilds. If you have any troubles while in the tower, feel free to let me know. I'm the Crusader, and I'm in charge of the security in Babylon on the first floor. Teacher, I heard that you ran an orphanage outside. It's hard to talk about since we're meeting for the first time, but the tower is always in need of professionals. I'll make a formal visit to you later. Yes. Everyone, thank you for your hospitality. The director responded to the hunters like he was used to it. Once the welcoming procession passed and the two of us were alone, the director spoke. I'm used to things like this since one of your peers became the youngest member of the National Assembly. At that time, dozens of people came over every week to greet me. Huh? Who? Kim Hanbija. Do you remember him? He's now a representative. You probably didn't realize it because he changed his name. I was shocked. This news wasn't something I'd heard before my 4,000-day regression. I had stopped paying attention to my homeland. Seriously. No way. He's just an idiot. What did he change his name to? Kim Hanbai. Then he just cut off the last syllable? He is an idiot, isn't he? I can say this now that you're an adult, Gongja, but you were also an idiot. A great king of fools. Ack. Wasn't I a little smart? I never knew that people could be so bad at math until I raised you kids. Death King, you're lucky that the tower rankings are not determined by test scores. Bei Hurayong giggled from behind. I'm going to hear a lot of Gongja's dark history today. Good, good. Say more. The director and I continued talking pleasantly. I spoke to the librarian in advance so that our conversation would not be overheard. He granted my request, and not just that, but he got the bookmark maids to serve us tea and refreshments. I saw it in the videos, but this really is a strange world. Here. The director looked at a bookmark maid suspiciously. So. Finally, after sweeping through the entire library, the director's eyes once again settled on my face. Where is that child? I told the director everything. About my abilities. About the trauma. And about the person named Lafanta Ejim and the Constellation Killer. The director listened to everything I said with a blank expression on his face. But expressionless didn't mean emotionless. For more than an hour, the director sat still without taking even a single sip of the tea. It's all so hard to believe. Any of it. Yes. However, it would otherwise be impossible for you to know about Kim Yul. Since childhood, I'd always found the director's expressions to be hard to read. But that had changed after the trauma. The director was afraid. Kim Yul wasn't even in our yearbook. There were no photos or traces of him. No matter where I looked, I could not find anything, and no one seemed to care. Think about it, Gongja. Could you pretend that the seat was empty the whole time? How could they smile so brightly for the photos? He. For a very long time, I couldn't understand how they could smile. Right. I'm sure they're living well even now. The director looked down at his teacup with an indifferent expression. He quietly took a sip of his tea, which had already cooled a long time ago, and looked me in the eyes. It's fine. That child. No, the trace of that child. Please show him to me. I nodded. 100 Ghosts reincarnation. The shadows spread. They squirmed. As though they were alive, and flowed like water before gradually rising to the shape of a human. The waves turned into silver hair, and the puddles formed neat clothes. Lafanta Ejim. The constellation killer looked around. This is an unexpected situation. The silver-haired man spoke in a blunt tone. Was I abducted? Did you kidnap a puppet and forcefully awaken it? My power. I can't use it. I suppose that either the puppet system was tampered with or very powerful mental magic was used. The man who lost his black hair. His name. His memory. Kim Yul had already forgotten his origins, so the man before us was a completely different person from Kim Yul. He was Lafanta Ejim, the constellation killer. Therefore, no one could call him Kim Yul. Kim Yul SSI. Except for the one person who had witnessed his beginning. The constellation killer turned to look at the director. The director slowly kneeled on the library floor. I am one of the people who killed Kim Yul. I wanted to tell you this for a very long time. Sincerely. The director put his forehead to the ground. I'm sorry. The constellation killer's expression hardened. Chapter 139. Latecomer. 1. The protagonists living inside stories sparkled like constellations. I had no interest in the constellations that shone in the night sky. My stars were the characters. Their stories were my resplendent constellations. There were countless stars in space and infinite stories in the universe. I want to see the stories a little more. Thoughtlessly, I touched the light of the stars. Just a bit more. That was all. 2. Silence settled in the library. The great library of all things. A place where each book contained a world. Countless people lived in countless worlds, and each of them had a story. Here, 2 characters from one of the books, the Epic of Lafanta Ejim, were present. The constellation killer quietly looked down at the director. Did you say you are one of the people who killed me? Yes. Kim Yul SSI. What a strange thing to say. The constellation killer's voice was dull. My death was recorded 153 years, 7 months, and 9 days ago. The name of the one who killed me at that time is the Sword Emperor. The constellation killer pulled out an old notebook. That diary was the last stop that Kim Yul ever reached, a vow that he would only leave behind the traces of his past but never remember his past himself. The features of the Sword Emperor as recorded in the diary are different from yours. Just like how my skeletons would never let go of their daggers after being swallowed by the 100 Ghosts reincarnation, the constellation killer only had one old notebook. Are you the next generation of the Sword Emperor? From my understanding, the Sword Emperor is not the type to apologize to anyone. He is not the type to seek an apology either. The director must have realized. I judge that you are not the next generation of the Sword Emperor and you are not someone who has killed me. You have no reason to apologize to me. That he was already late. Therefore, I do not accept your apology. Firstly, my name is Lafanta Ejim. My epithet is the constellation killer. You looked at me and called me Kim Yul. However, nowhere in the diary is it recorded that I was ever called Kim Yul. Have you mistaken me for someone else? Kim Yul SSI. The director's voice was shaking. Kim Yul is the name you had before you were called Lafanta Ejim. It is a name from long ago, before you obtained the diary. The world that you used to live in was. It is no use. Someone came to my side and muttered. It was the librarian. He whispered to me so quietly that the constellation killer and the director could not hear it. It's a touching scene. I can admit that. On one side, the victim sealed in time. On the other, the bystander frozen by time. The scene is as beautiful as a painting. I looked at the librarian. The corner librarian rejoices but also despairs. He was wearing a peculiar expression. He seemed sad yet also happy. While his eyes woefully looked down, his breath was flush. However, Death King, too many things happened too late. The Constellation Killer can never be saved. It doesn't matter if he accepts an apology now. The Constellation Killer remembers nothing. His appearance and mindset are completely different from those of Kim Yul. How can he receive an apology for something he does not remember? How can he forgive someone for something he cannot recall? You, I said quietly. You know that I'm a regressor, right? The librarian smiled. Of course. How? Do you regress whenever I do? No, that is not how it works. In particular, your returner's clockwork watch skill is so special that even a constellation cannot easily approach its dignity. But I, like other constellations, have a clever power. The librarian flicked his finger. Snap! Then, a book flew at us. Plus. The Tale of the Ascending City. Plus. The book was the one that the constellation had shown us when we first set foot in the Great Library. Remember this? It's the book of your world. We cannot call it an apocalypse because it has not perished. The librarian's eyes perked up. Now, guess. Whom do you think I would designate as the protagonist of The Tale of the Ascending City? It was obvious. Me. Right. That's correct. Is everything related to me recorded in that book? Do you know what skills I have, when and how I regress, and all?
Ah.
The librarian smirked and flipped open a page of The Tale of the Ascending City. The kiss of time that you shared with ClassRevivalHunter. The love and intimacy were truly sweet. You resolved the situation in a completely unexpected way. It became one of my favorite scenes. Of course, the trauma you experienced this time is also in this book. That is why I allowed that person to enter the library though he does not have an epithet. The librarian was referring to the director. Even now, the director was desperately trying to explain to the Constellation Killer who he was and what had happened. However, the Constellation Killer's expressionless face did not change. You've worked hard, Death King, said the librarian. You made an attempt. You tried, and you did your best. But it's already too late for the Constellation Killer. It is a rule that the best ending is difficult to reach, no matter how hard the characters try. This is the normal ending that is allowed for the Constellation Killer. The librarian was sad, but he seemed even more happy. Except for the bad ending, it is an acceptable ending for the Constellation Killer to reach. Though, sadly, the Constellation Killer won't know it himself. Your efforts, the orphanage director's regrets, everything is futile.
Ah.
The Constellation Killer will remain as a weapon that slaughters constellations. Forever. No matter what move I make? Yes. No matter what you do. The librarian slowly began to put The Tale of the Ascending City in his breast pocket. At that moment, I reached out and grabbed his wrist. The librarian flinched. If you're that confident. I looked straight down at the librarian. The two of us. Shall we make a bet? A bet. I can connect Kim Yul's timeline with the Constellation Killers. Just as Kim Yul became the Constellation Killer, I will make the Constellation Killer become Kim Yul. Then, he'll be able to receive the apology from the director. Don't be thoughtless. Did I not tell you? It's simply impossible. That's why. I gripped the librarian's wrist tighter. Let's make a bet. You said he's one of your favorite characters. The constellation killer. I'll bring back his memories by any means possible. You should help, too. Well, you don't have to do too much to help. Just as much help as you gave to send me to the Epic of Lafanta Ejim. The constellation's eyes narrowed. What if you fail even after I help? What will I gain? You can do whatever you want with me for 10 years. The librarian faltered. You said you wanted to pluck my eyebrows and keep the hair? You can. I think you wanted to cut my nails. Do that, too. I'll let you do everything you want, so you can play around to your heart's content for 10 years. The librarian's eyes shook. Anything, you say? Yes. Why, you are saying something very scary. Death King, I have been very polite before you so far. If I do whatever I want, I would do something magnificent and grand. Just look at the bookmark maids. The bet. Will you, or won't you? The librarian's lips quivered slightly. For a moment, his eyes were stained with greed. Like the constellation killer, I was another character he loved. The librarian looked at me like a snake would its prey. I must adhere to the principle of non-intervention. The librarian gulped. But it's a different story if the character asks first. That's why I granted the butler's wish in The Tale of Sormwin Academy. All right. Death King, I will assist you. However, if you fail to connect the constellation killer with Kim Yul, I will take your 10 years and enjoy it well. Okay. Still holding the librarian's wrist, I walked toward the constellation killer and the director. Click. Click. Footsteps echoed in the area of the library where everyone else had left. Hey. Hey. Zombie. Are you crazy? Why are you making this bet? Beihurayon was making a fuss. Are you betting 'cause you're 100% sure you'll win? Huh? You think that social recluse will support you because you're his fave or whatever, but that guy's also a constellation. A constellation. Not only that, but he's a high-class perv. You don't know what'll happen if you entrust your soul to that bastard. It's all right. I'm completely confident I'll win. For a long time, I'd been thinking about why the tower existed. It wasn't that something needed a reason to exist, but to me, at least, the tower seemed to have been built for a definite reason. Because of the tower, thanks to the tower, those who had turned their backs to the outside world were able to start their lives again. To live life once more. Some may call it rebirth, and others may call it reincarnation. Constellation killer. For some, it meant reunion. Director. And thus, the halted times resumed. Film a teen movie with me. The constellation killer and the director stared at me. The first to open his mouth was the constellation killer. What does that mean? Constellation killer. You cannot accept the director's apology because you lost your memory. You don't even think you need it. But if you could accept it, you'd want to. The constellation killer opened his diary and nodded. That is true. We have only talked for a short while, but the person kneeling before me is very kind. He is principled. I judge that it is not principles with which he was born but ones he acquired by suffering through life. If it is possible, I would like to accept his apology. Director. I looked at the director. He was still kneeling on the floor of the library. If you could apologize to Kim Yul SSI. Even my life. The director responded immediately, not waiting for me to finish my words. I would gladly give up my soul for it. Yes. Thank you. I grabbed the director's hand and pulled him up. His hand was old and stout. I remembered then that it had been a long time since I last held the director's hands. I remembered building a tower of sand on the playground with the director a very long time ago. Director, this story became possible thanks to you. Because he did not forget, I was able to be raised in an orphanage. If even the director forgot Kim Yul, like everyone else did, this moment would never have occurred. The life of Kim Yul wove the life of the director. The director's life created my life. Now, my life had reaped the life of the constellation killer, and the three of us managed to find a place here. The three of us were connected. I'll never allow this to all be in vain. It may be a little late, but the time had come to give back to the one who had raised me. Librarian. I grabbed the director's hand tightly and turned to face the constellation. The librarian smiled like he was sure he would win the bet. Speak, Death King. My beloved hunter. Me, the constellation killer, and the director. I'll challenge the next stage with these two. Oh ho! The librarian's eyes twinkled like he was intrigued. That's quite commendable. You intend to build relationships between you three again, even if it's a bit late? Oh ho. Well, that's one possible ending. It's kind of an open ending. With something like, our story begins now. No. I reached out my free hand and took a book from him. It's not like that. The Tale of the Ascending City. A book in which I was the main character. I choose this book for the next stage. The librarian tilted his head back and forth, confused. I'm sorry. I don't understand. The Tale of the Ascending City is happening in real time already. There is no point in making it into a stage and challenging it. You said it before. I was chosen as the protagonist of this book. So, everything I've gone through has been recorded. Yes, but... Send the three of us to one of the events I've gone through. What event do you mean? The trauma. Suddenly. The smile dropped from the librarian's face. I looked calmly at the constellation in front of me. You just said it. Of course, the trauma you experienced this time is also in this book. That trauma ended in tragedy. The world was destroyed. It may have only been an illusion, but it was swallowed up by the void, and all of the stories of every character came to an end. Librarian, by your classifications, that trauma is indisputably an apocalypse.
Ah.
The librarian opened his mouth. He looked up at me with eyes filled with astonishment. Death King, you can't possibly send the three of us to the Shinseo Middle and High School apocalypse. Of course, the constellation killer is Kim Yul, and the director is the class president. I am the bully. If he can't accept an apology, if he can't forgive because of his lost memory, and allow immersion, it'll be enough to bring back those memories. Like how the heretic questioner was immersed in the Lady of the Golden Silk and became her character. Like I was immersed in the butler and gained more and more of the butler's memories. If the constellation killer becomes immersed as Kim Yul, then Kim Yul's memories will be grafted to the constellation killer. The constellation killer will be able to remember his days as Kim Yul. Librarian. No, Hamustra. That was right. We were a little late. But nothing was over yet. Open the book. The librarian stopped breathing.